Hey there. This week had range. The good news, fuel prices dropped sharply. The less good news, politics continued doing what politics does best, giving us drama and a mild headache. The Constitutional Court put Cape Town's inequality back in the spotlight with a major ruling on the Tafelberg school site. President Cyril Ramaphosa's mini-reshuffle reminded us that in cabinet, political maths often beats clean optics. And the DA had a very public wobble over leadership and what it means to be the clean party when the dirty laundry is suddenly out in the open. There was also relief as anti-immigration protests passed largely peacefully, heartbreak as Bafana's historic World Cup run ended, and international concern as Uganda cracked down on the press. Venezuela reeled from deadly quakes, and Europe sweated through a brutal heatwave. In science news, we also got bird gossip as scientists edged us a little closer to understanding what birds are saying to each other. So let's dive into these stories and more in this week's wrap, brought to you by myself, Dina Pule, and the Explained Okoza team. First up in your national news, the Court has ruled that the sale of the former Tafelberg school in Sea Point was unlawful. The ruling has put Cape Town's inequality in the spotlight, with the court saying the Western Cape government and the city of Cape Town failed in their constitutional obligations to address spatial apartheid. The landmark judgment handed down this week means the well-located public land must now be reconsidered for affordable housing. It comes just days after Cape Town was named the world's most beautiful city in a global survey, highlighting the contrast between the city's global appeal and the ongoing struggle over who can afford to live close to the opportunities and amenities it offers. Fuel prices dropped sharply from Wednesday, giving motorists some welcome relief. Petrol 95 fell by R1.96 a litre, petrol 93 by R2.01, while diesel dropped by between R3.14 a litre and R3.59 a litre. The cuts come as the government's 3-month fuel levy relief, introduced during the US-Israel conflict with Iran, ended. Lower global oil prices, helped by US-Iran talks and a slightly stronger rand, also pushed prices down. For households already stretched by rising living costs, every rand saved at the pump counts. A key Madlanga Commission witness was shot just before he was due to testify. Police have launched a high-level probe after suspended crime intelligence boss Major General Feroz Khan was shot outside his Houghton home on Sunday. Khan, who was due to appear before the Madlanga Commission on Wednesday, was reportedly shot in the stomach and is said to be in a critical condition. SAP's Political Killings Task Team has joined the investigation, with the police saying it is premature and irresponsible to speculate about motive, but the timing has raised eyebrows. The Public Service Commission gave government departments their latest report card on Wednesday. Their Pulse Bulletin, covering April to June, examined unpaid suppliers, whistleblower protection, hiring practices, and complaints and grievances. The PSC, South Africa's independent watchdog for public administration, and it could soon get a real bite. A new bill awaiting the president's signature would turn it from an advisory body into a stronger constitutional enforcer. With 2 related public service laws already signed, the push to professionalize the state is moving. Bafana's historic World Cup run ended in heartbreak. South Africa made its first knockout stage appearance but lost 1-0 to co-host Canada at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles on Sunday night. Steven Estequio, however you pronounce that, scored in the 92nd minute, just when extra time was starting to look likely. Few expected Bafana to get this far, though, but Africa's place in the World Cup is not done. Morocco reached the last 16 by beating the Netherlands on penalties, while Egypt, Ghana, Algeria, and Cape Verde are all still going strong. In your international news, Uganda's press freedom took another hit on Sunday. The country's military chief and President Museveni's son, Muhuri Kainerugaba, ordered the shutdown of the Daily Monitor and NTV Uganda, declaring, "I do not believe in a free press." Soldiers forced TV and radio stations off air. The move adds concerns over Uganda's shrinking democracy under Museveni, who has been in power for 40 years and began a 7th term earlier this year following a sham election that saw opposition crackdowns and an election internet blackout. Venezuela's twin quakes have left over 2,000 people dead. Venezuela has been hit by its strongest earthquakes in over a century. 2 quakes, measuring 7.2 and 7.5, struck within seconds of each other last week, killing at least 2,295 people and injuring more than 10,000. Around 50,000 people are still missing. UNDP estimates damage at about $6.7 billion, while UNICEF says 1.8 million people need humanitarian aid. Rescue teams from more than 27 countries are helping as aftershocks continue. As of Sunday, Europe's heatwave has killed over 1,300 people since the 21st of June and strained power grids. The WHO said a record heatwave has affected 150 million people and killed more than 1,300 on the continent in just a week. Germany broke heat records for 3 consecutive days recently, while Poland hit 41.7 degrees, and parts of Ukraine faced power cuts as people cranked up cooling systems. Beyond the health risks, climate change also means severe economic costs due to decreased productivity amongst workers. African artists were all over the BET Awards shortlists, but left Los Angeles empty-handed on Sunday. The BETs, which celebrates black entertainers, recently moved African acts out of Africa-only categories and into broader international ones, putting stars like Tems, Burna Boy, Wizkid, Asake, and Tyler in tougher global races. It is a noticeable change rather from recent years, when African acts dominated several wins in the international categories. Still, the message is clear. Afrobeats, Amapiano, and African pop are no longer niche. A little birdie told science quite a lot. UC Berkeley scientist Dr. Julie Ellie won a $100,000 prize for decoding zebra finch calls. Her work identified 11 core bird calls and showed the chatty birds use them to say who they are and what they're doing. Using machine learning, Ellie found the birds even understand call meanings, not just sounds, by testing how they reacted to calls in different contexts. It's a step towards human-animal communication. And finally, someone may be able to explain to us why hodidas scream their heads off at 5 a.m. in the morning. Moving on to your biggest stories, if there was any hope that South Africa had finally moved beyond recycling controversial politicians, President Cyril Ramaphosa's latest cabinet reshuffle, the DA's input, politely asked us to lower our expectations. On Tuesday night, Ramaphosa announced what was technically a small reshuffle, motivated in part by the DA swapping out of leaders like Steenhuisen. Politically, though, it packed quite a punch. Its biggest headline was the return of former Communications Minister Dina Pule, who is now a Minister of Social Development. Yes, that Dina Pule. Quick rewind. Pule was removed from cabinet in 2013 after a string of scandals, and the public protector finding that she had improperly benefited her romantic partner during a state-funded ICT conference. Parliament's Ethics Committee also condemned her actions, suggesting that she be criminally charged for failing to disclose her romantic relationship with businessman Bafana Mqabisa, who benefited from a contract awarded by her department and who accompanied her on several government-funded overseas trips. Pule also made headlines in 2012 for attending an ICT Indaba in Cape Town wearing red-soled shoes which cost thousands of rands that the Sunday Times reported may have been bought with funds that sponsors put towards the event. Others impacted by the reshuffle and the DA drama include 2 DA-deployed deputy ministers who were booted from cabinet and considered political allies of Steenhuisen. The DA subbed in David Maynor as the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, and Yusuf Kasim and Jack Bloom as Deputy Ministers of Higher Education and Training and Water and Sanitation, respectively. Kasim, a long-time education activist and politician, has already been subjected to surprising levels of vitriol, with many attacking both his faith and race. The malice comes as othering has risen sharply, especially on social media off the back of the 30th June protests. While the DA drama has dominated the cabinet reshuffle, the appointment of Pule tells us something about Ramaphosa's presidency. He has built much of his political brand around renewal, ethical government, and cleaning up after state capture. But bringing back a politician whose name has long been associated with ethics investigations inevitably creates uncomfortable optics, regardless of whether she's legally entitled to serve. Moving on to the DA in more detail, the party has spent years telling voters it is disciplined, rules-based, and allergic to the factional chaos it regularly blames on the ANC. This week, that image took a knock. In a bombshell News 24 interview on Sunday, former DA leader John Steenhuisen accused his successor, Jordan Hill-Lewis, of betrayal after Steenhuisen was moved from Agriculture Minister to Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. He said Hill-Lewis had given my head to a baying mob of hyenas after allegedly assuring him that stepping down as party leader would not cost him his cabinet post. He accused the party of appeasing what he called Afri-Maga white right-wing voters he believes the DA is afraid to upset. The DA has spent years trying to grow beyond its traditional base and win more black, coloured and Indian voters. If Steenhuisen is right, the party is stuck between two difficult tasks: expanding its appeal without scaring off conservative voters it still relies on. Then came the explosive Tony Leon resolve communications allegations. Steenhuisen claimed Leon's firm used its proximity to DA leaders to arrange meetings between ministers and private clients, including Starlink. Leon has denied wrongdoing, while EWN reported that Hill Lewis dismissed the claims as a non-issue. The issue has exploded in the public arena since, with similar allegations from former DA leaders regarding pressure from Leon and Resolve Communications to do a solid for their clients, including former Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba and former Minister of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries Dion George. The controversy has opened a bigger question about lobbying in South Africa. Corruption watchers Janine Erasmus told Explain that lobbying can be legitimate when transparent and in the public interest, but based on what is publicly known, she said the matter, quote, does look like it could be a matter of lobbying for personal enrichment, end quote. Political analyst Richard Calland, in an interview with Explain, said the real issue is that South Africa has no proper public lobbying register showing who is lobbying whom, for which client, and on what policy. The legal question around the matter remains unresolved, but politically the damage is done. The DA wants to look like a government in waiting. This week, it looked like every other South African party, ambitious, divided, and suddenly very good at airing laundry in public. South Africa's 30th June anti-immigration marches ended without the widespread violence many had feared, after a security operation that police say drew directly on lessons from two past events: the 2012 Marikana massacre, where police killed 34 mine workers, and the July 2021 unrest, where police were overwhelmed and more than 350 people died in the worst violence South Africa has seen since apartheid ended. Daily Maverick reported that this time the goal was enough of a police presence to prevent looting without repeating either failure. It appears to have worked, despite Amnesty International's warning beforehand that rising anti-migrant sentiment could turn deadly. SNDF was placed on standby and police deployed in large numbers in the days before the marches. Police recorded 82 arrests in Gauteng on the day, and by 1st July, 900 arrests nationally, more than 300 of them undocumented migrants. Ahead of the marches, migrant-owned businesses began closing and some foreign nationals left their communities out of fear. So we avoided the worst, but while there wasn't an outpouring of violence, the danger is far from over. The scale and organization of the marches suggest anti-immigration sentiment has moved from the political fringe into mainstream public debate. The marches were organized by anti-immigration groups and drew support from thousands of people across the country, along with some political leaders. Protesters argue that undocumented migration puts pressure on jobs, healthcare, housing, and other public services. Researchers and rights groups say migrants are being scapegoated for problems rooted in weak economic growth, inequality, and government failures. Organizers have already signaled plans for further marches. Whether that becomes a recurring pattern may depend less on policing than on whether the government addresses the unemployment, service delivery, and cost of living pressures driving the sentiments behind them. That's it from us. Remember to share the love. Tell your friends to sign up at explain.co.za/subscribe. Till next time, goodbye from the team.